Good morning and welcome to the David and David on Real Estate podcast. Today we are on episode number 147 and we have a very special guest. Not going to try to pronounce your last name, but
Rinku
Rinku,
Ghei.
Rinku Ghei. There you
Yeah.
go. And Rinku, what company are you with? You're with
I've got a couple companies, but I think this one you're talking to me about Push Marketing Group, where it deals with more of the branding and the marketing side of everything.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I have many questions.
Oh man. Let me give you the Coles notes then. 21 years old, started my first clothing store, learned branding, marketing through the School of Hard Knocks. At the time, pretty popular stores. I was working with a couple Raptors back then, and really, crash course on talent management at the time as well. And fast forward that, sold those stores, started working with a record label, managing artists, and got it. So that gave me a little bit more in depth into talent management. Go from there, come back to Toronto, tired of touring the world, just didn't want to do it anymore, and come back to Toronto. And I've known Superfan Nav for a while, and we're just having this discussion about what he wants to do with his life. And I wanted to start a marketing company in Toronto, and so I basically just made a deal with him. I was going to build a marketing company around the Superfan brand, and I'm going to help him build his legacy, and I'm going to build a Superfan brand from there. So yeah, this is about 25, 26 years of life lessons culminating into Push Marketing Group and building this brand. So
What
here
was
I am.
the clothing store?
It was called Collections America. There were a couple hip hop stores, and I sold it a little differently. I was marketing the lifestyle of hip hop, and so I was not just selling clothing, but I was sponsoring DJs and club nights and all that fun stuff. So I had a lot of celebrities and athletes used to come to my store, and we would throw their parties afterwards. A lot of ball player parties with Chris Childs, Vince Carter's, and all these guys, and Allen Iverson's, and we would throw the parties afterwards. And so for me, it was a very simple, you coming into my shop and you're dropping $400 or $500. Here's a pass to the VIP lounge, and you're going to be sitting next to, Chris Childs or Mo Pete tonight. And, you're not shopping anywhere else after that. So that was kind of how I built that sort of side of things. And very, very, very much dove into the whole culture of the hip hop culture in the city. This is probably 97 to about 2004 or 5. So you can imagine those were like, the golden years of Toronto, the Vince Carter era. And, when Shaquille O'Neal was coming down here, the Caravana parades were awesome and they were huge. And the clubs were 3,000 people. And, it was Charles Caboose ran the world. And, that was that era, right?
Yeah. So were you at the Vince Carter retirement
Yeah.
jersey celebration the other day?
We were working behind the scenes with Vince with a lot of things. Obviously Nav's relationship with Vince is very, very close. And, the fact that I also had a relationship with these guys, separate from Nav way back in the day, it was nice to see. It was almost like we joked it was like a little reunion for us because to see Alvin and Kevin Willis and Mo Pete and JYD and Muggsy and all these guys used to shop at my store. So, it was just a little reunion. And I think the Raptors did an incredible job with the whole, the retirement weekend and, the plane to what happened on court. And it was great to see the fans embrace Vince again. And, because very few of us know the real story, what really happened at the time. And, and I think, you grow up and you grow wiser and you forgive your kids and your kids forgive the parents and you move forward. I think the legacy is very important as an organization. And I think they did an incredible job at embracing it. And now I've got an opportunity to present Vince with this nice little, I wouldn't say little, but nice chain. Probably worth a car, but but he deserved it. He deserved all the accolades and recognition. I don't even think we have a team if Vince Carter's not, not on this organization. So
Wow, that goes really, really back, eh? The
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
So Rinku, it sounds so simple. You own a clothing store, you collab with all these hip hop artists, you get into that scene. Why are more business owners not doing the same thing? Why are business owners not embracing collaborations? Why are we just not seeing more in the marketplace, especially in the real estate industry?
The hard part is like, it's that old saying, right? Like there's multiple hats you've got to put on, right? And a lot of these business owners, they've never done marketing, right? A lot of them, they have the money to open a business and they might have a passion for the product or they might have a passion for real estate. They might enjoy, the interactions with people and helping people, but there's so much more that goes into building a business. And a lot of people forget that marketing is not branding. Advertising is not branding. Like marketing and advertising are built off of building a brand, right? And a lot of people forget that first step of, what is my brand? What do I stand for? What's the message I'm going to put out? The marketing and advertising is what follows. And a
Right,
lot
it
of people,
amplifies your message, but you gotta have the
100%.
message first. It's like a megaphone, right? But if
Mhm.
you don't have, like, if I give somebody a megaphone, but they don't have anything to say, there's a misalignment, right? Same with like, yeah. So I get that.
Right. So if you're sitting there on the street corner with a megaphone offering me 50% off of your product and you're hoping that's how you're going to attract customers, what if I don't even want the product? What does that message really do? Right. So, and I've seen it, like I've kind of done a deep dive in real estate marketing over the last sort of 2 years, especially with my relationship with Sam McDaddy and I'm actually starting a real estate marketing company, Bovin Media. I and it again, it's very similar to what I'm doing now because every real estate agent is, you know, technically talent, right? You're selling your brand, you're selling yourself. You're your product, right? And you can be under whatever banner, you can be under Sutton and Remax and
Sure.
Sam McDaddy and whatever it is, but there's 70 something thousand real estate agents just in Ontario, right? So what separates you? How do and it's your brand. And a lot of real estate agents don't really understand that, the importance and the power of the brand. And that's what builds a Sam McDaddy versus that guy that's, doing 6 deals a day or 6 deals a month. Sorry. Like, there's a huge difference, right? Like,
Huge
and
difference.
and that's what I'm hoping to, now, dive into and help a handful of real estate agents, start developing their brand that want to take it to the next level. And whether it's getting to a brokerage or whether it's just doing even, better building their team and, working with you and, like whatever it is, right? So, a lot of businesses just skip that step. They skip that step of what's my brand really about, right? And that I think that's why franchising is so popular because you don't have to worry about that step. But a lot of people that open their own sort of business, they first thing they do is I got to make a flyer and a business card, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and that's step one, which is like and that just drives me insane when I hear that, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's the thing. That's that one step that's just skipped all the time. What do you really stand for?
Right. What is your unique value proposition? What is your dream client? And then, let's talk about your dream client. What are their wants, aspirations? What are their fears? Like let's really define and get into their psyche. And then, we can reverse engineer all that and find out, okay, where do they shop? Which clubs do they belong to? What kind of car do they drive? Like, where do they, what kind of shoes do they wear? And you can start formulating a plan of how you can actually reach them on a very emotional level, which is the step that most realtors, skip. They're transactional, right? So they're chasing transactions. It's like, hey, where is my next deal coming from? And at the end of the day, look, we can build a lot of wealth. Realtors sit 3 feet from gold, literally,
Yeah.
right? but nobody approaches, real estate from a wealth building conversations in the real estate field. Everybody kind of approaches it from, a transactional approach where they're like, hey, where's my next deal coming from? And they skip over a whole bunch of steps, which is, the whole point of creating a strong personal brand.
Yeah, and there was one point that you hit upon, which is, it's funny that you say that because, every time I sit in front of a client, the first thing I ask them is, wake up 5 years from now, and if we work together, what is the barometer of success?
Love it. I love that question. Love
What
that.
does it look like 5 years from now? And I'll reverse engineer the whole thing
Love
to
it.
this day. And it's funny because that's how I started even with Nav. Like with Nav, it was, 5 years from now, what does Superfan look like? And he just wanted a camp for kids and basketball courts. No
No
problem.
way. Really?
And he wanted a foundation. And my thing, I reverse engineered it, and it was a very simple 3-step process. I'm gonna build the brand first. It's going to set the parameters. What's our messaging? What do people need to know about you? How are we going to get to that point? Number two was, I got to make you a celebrity. So, there's things I'm going to do that you're going to be very uncomfortable with because you're not used to it. But there's a purpose behind it, and then the number three is you're going to have your foundation and your basketball courts.
That's so
And we did it in 3 years, right? And it was just funny because at the 3 year mark, we sat down and I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, and we were like, no, there's way more to do. So then again, at that 3 year mark was basically, okay, what's the next 5 years look like now? Right? What do you
love
want in the next 5 years? And that's when I kind of threw at him, you know, man, what if we can do a book and a movie? What if we can do all that? And then, you have the
create
five
a
year mark.
lasting legacy, right? Like that's what it's
Yeah.
about.
And you reverse engineer it. So, I'm so happy to hear you say that because, that's the best way it works. And I'm an avid chess player, right?
Oh, I love
But
chess. I got
I'm an
into it a
avid chess
lot.
player. And every time I play, the first thing I think about is this is how I'm going to beat you.
Really?
I already know how I'm going to beat you. I just got to get to that point now. And I
We
watch
gotta
what
play
you
one day.
do. I watch what you do and I try to figure out, okay, how can I now manipulate this board to get you to that point where I'm going to beat you?
Yeah,
And
it,
it's the
it's a
same thing.
fascinating game.
Yeah. It's the same, but it's the same thing. You gotta know what your end goal is, and then you've got to figure out what are the steps to get there. Right. And from a marketing perspective, I just see it, you're right. It's very transactional. It's, how many deals can I do this month? But and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it is sales and sales works like that, but how much easier does it get when you've actually thinking of everything at a much more holistic level, right? I mean, look at, I say Sam again because, I did a deep dive on him, but on analyzing his company, but you're bang on. So I was so glad to hear you say that. Like, I rarely hear somebody mention reverse engineering when it comes to marketing and branding.
Well, and the other thing is, how many lives can you influence? How many lives can you touch? I feel like with real estate, I look at all the other professionals, and my argument is that realtors can probably move the needle more than a lot of the other professionals can. You know, if I call David Corman and I say, David, I want to make $1 million, how can you help me? David will be like, well, I can protect you and I can draft agreements and I can advise on legal matters, right? But can David actually, help me increase my net worth by $1 million, right? If I call my accountant and say, hey, Mr. Accountant, I want to increase my net worth by $1 million, well, I can give you some tax tips and I can do this and I can do that and I can structure and I can advise, but can they actually get you $1 million more, right? But with realtors, if I call my realtor and I have a good realtor in front of me and I say, hey, I want to increase my net worth by $1 million. Okay, like let's discuss that. Let's reverse engineer it. You want $1 million in the next 12 months? Okay, we got to do A, B, and C. And real estate is the easy solution to that conversation.
Hmm. I mean, it's easy and it's difficult at the same time. It's not easy for everybody to get into the market, but and I think that's something that you hit on that I don't see a lot with real estate agents either, or and even from the other side of the coin is, the consumer, they don't look at their real estate agent, like somebody that can help them build wealth. A lot of them look at their real estate agent as, I need them for this moment in time,
Right.
buying and selling, right? And, they don't look at it as, I remember using this agent a year ago and everything worked out. And, let me see what kind of opportunities there are as an investment. And, most people wake up one day and say, oh, I've got some extra money. Let me, think about buying a pre-construction condo. And, they don't build that relationship with that real estate agent. And it kind of works both ways, right? So, you're bang on with that as well.
I
Wow.
find that it's even the opposite. It even gets worse than that, Rico. When some people think of the real estate agent, they think it's just someone's going to take away some of their value, some of their equity in a property. I got to pay them a commission. And their first thought sometimes is, can I do this without one? Can I do it on my own so I don't have to pay the commission on it? Because I'm coming across all the time and like we're huge advocates. No, no, you need a real estate agent. They add so much value to it, but the thought process, it goes the other way. Can I do this without? Can I save that commission? Right?
Mhm. Well, I mean, it's the problem you have is, at the end of the day, ultimately it's sales. And, you're always going to run into a great car salesman and you're going to run into a car salesman you can't stand. And that's just, that's the name of the business, right? So, you can't fault people for thinking that way. Their experience probably hasn't been as, um, beneficial to them as they would hope. And it probably is very transactional. And it probably is, well, I could have searched MLS myself and, look, done what they've done, and said all this open house, like, went and visited these places myself. And I'm giving up 1.5, 2%, whatever I'm giving up, or 2.5%, right? Like, but that's why, when you come down to it, how important that brand is, right? Are you a transactional real estate agent, or are you building actual value? What are they saying about you when you leave the room? A brand is essentially your promise to your client. That's all it is. Like, it's not logos and colors and all that stuff. It's that promise to your client. So, if you're promising just a transactional opportunity, that's what you're going to get back. And maybe some real estate agents, that's all they're looking for. I mean, but I find it very hard to believe those are the ones that are, extremely
Successful.
successful and, have longevity in the game. I mean, we saw the numbers in the last 2, 3 years. How many of the 75,000 real estate agents did less than 5 deals, right? Like,
A lot.
it was my jaw dropped when I heard the number. Like, it's scary,
Scary. Yeah.
right?
And you could be the absolute best number one realtor in the GTA and have the biggest brand, the biggest reputation, biggest everything. Biggest mouth usually goes along with it too. But you're not going to get 100% of the transactions. You just can't. You open up a clothing store, you want to be the only person with a clothing store in the city, but you realize you can't be the only, you're not going to be the only one. So you got to do the best you can and market your brand and get more than your market share being what you are, right? Same thing in my law. I would like to do every real estate transaction in the city, but I know it's not going to happen. But I'm always working in our, how can we get more than our market share? We can't just sit back and wait for clients to walk in and say, hey, here's a deal. How do we get out there and get more than our market share? Isn't that sort of what you're trying to teach and preach, regardless of the business?
1,000%. I can go on any city block and there's 5 people selling me burgers, right? That's the reality of the world we live in. Why am I coming to you versus going to the next real estate agent? And my biggest, and I see it all the time, and we all know, referrals and reviews and, that everybody's been doing these TikTok dances now and people's open houses, and like I see it all the time. But at the end of the day, that's all advertising and marketing. That's all you're doing basically is standing on the street corner with a "come get your car wash" sign, right? That's what you're doing, right? But at the end of the day, if you can focus on taking that one step before all that, and what am I looking to deliver? What's my brand? What's my message? What do I want people to come away from after a transaction with me? Everything else sells that message. And a lot of salespeople don't look at it that way. A lot of salespeople essentially look at, here's a free evaluation, and here's my card, and here's my flyer that I'm, putting around to 10,000 houses, and oh, I just sold this house for 180,000% over asking. You should come to me, right? And those are all the advertising messages you see, but again, all you're doing is just, you're not really selling me. You're giving me an opportunity to choose you over somebody else, but somebody else is going to come to me and say they sold their last house for 250,000% over asking. You're never going to win that type of race, right? And that's why branding is so important. And you bring it back to Superfan. If I ask anybody about Superfan, it's funny because the last thing they say is, "Oh, isn't he a car dealer?" 20 years ago, "Oh, Nav Bhatia, he's a car dealer." Now that's the last thing they say.
That's interesting, eh? So Rinku, what are some tips for realtors? Like if obviously our podcast is geared towards the real estate industry, and we have a lot of realtors listening. So if you're a realtor and you're listening to this, what would you say to them? What steps should they take? What advice do you have for them to build a really strong personal brand?
Call me. That's it's such a tough question to answer, because there's so much that goes into it. And I can't stand, like, one of the things that I can't stand is, like all these, brand guides and all these other things. And I get it. Like, somebody's gone to school for all this and put it all on paper and given you a step-by-step guide, but everybody's different, right? At the end of the day, what I tell one person is not going to work for you. What I tell you is not going to work for the other person, because, authenticity is so important in the brand. It's so important. What makes you you, right? What is it about you that makes you you? Like, what are your hobbies? What are the things you love? What are the things in the community you're involved in? What do you want to do from a real estate? Like, do you want to help people build wealth, or do you want to help people just find a home? Like, there's so many things that that are part of building that brand that you've got to think about. What do I want out of my real estate career, right? Am I okay doing $1 million homes? Or is my goal to be on, selling Sunset? Like, there's so many things that you've got to do to think about, who do you want to be 5 years from now as a real estate agent? There's a lot of real estate agents I run into. They're looking for just if they can make $200,000-300,000 a year, great family life, they're happy with it. Right. And then there's the other ones that show up, they've got the nice fitted suit and the Hermes belt and, the no socks loafers. And, you see these guys all the time. And, and that's like, it's like a real estate, costume that you got to put on. And I see it all the time. And I just look at that and I'm just like, oh my God, like, that just, what do you think that's going to get you? Right.
I
You're
love
going to,
that you just said that. I was afraid you're gonna give these people props, right? Because I'm all about substance, right? And I'm all about like, let's create wealth, let's build for the future, right? And when I see the guys with the, no socks loafers and the expensive cars and the Hermes belt, I shake my head because I know what's behind that, and it's very shallow. It doesn't go very deep, right?
yeah.
And that's, that's a problem in our industry. It's the whole fake it till you make it. And I'm a huge advocate against that. I'm all about authenticity. I'm all about hard work. I'm all about, doing the right things to build for the future, which I think our industry lacks, because I think a lot of realtors have a very short-term vision. Give me money now. I want money now, chasing those paychecks. And that's not a good way to really build for the future at all, right?
Yeah, there's something to be said for, faking it till you make it. It's sales, right? Nobody wants to give their $1.2 million home to somebody that, it shows up in a Honda Accord, right? Like let's be honest. That's it's part of the gig, right? Um, to me, the reason I brought that up is because, if that's the way you want to present yourself, great. But how are you separating yourself from everybody else? Right? You're coming off to me as a very transactional sort of agent, right? How are you separating yourself? What's the message you're trying to give me? Okay, great. You showed up in a nice, Range Rover, Mercedes, BMW. You've got your nice fitted suit. I get it. You're successful in the business. You do transactions. I know you've got experience, and that's the message they want to put across, right? It's very transactional.
Yes.
For my point of view, it's, how do you take that now and reverse engineer it and start building a brand off of it? Like there's nothing wrong with, and I shouldn't knock, the Hermes belt, but it's just I just see it in the industry all the time that, I can almost be in a room and point out, okay, that guy's a real estate agent, right? Like, but there's nothing wrong with it. But I think you gotta sort of speak toward, again, what are you looking for? You're looking for something different. You want to offer your clients something completely different. You're not interested in that transactional. So you're interested in building long-term business with your clients, right? So, for you, the sharkskin suits probably aren't gonna, be how you want to present yourself, right? And which is great, because what I'm hearing is a brand in development. Right? That's what I'm hearing, right? This is what you're going to get when you come to you, right? And if you're going to attract that customer that's looking for that type of long-term sort of relationship, that guy's going to get me because, you know what? Okay, you can sell my house. Cool. Right? Am I going to go back to him the next time? I don't know. That's going to depend on how much, of a relationship we build and how much follow-up there is. There's no rules to this game, right? Like I've seen some guys that I question how the hell they're successful, and they're successful. There's no rules to the game. You got the gift of gab, you can sell anything, right?
Yeah.
But I think the hard part is, again, it's how do you level up,
Right, right.
right?
There's a customer for everybody, right? Every personality type,
Everybody.
every single character type. But there's somebody that is gonna, mesh well with you. And if you can attract those people into your sphere, life gets easy because you get along, you understand each other, you have common goals, common values, common hobbies. You spend more time talking about the Porsche in the driveway than you do about the real estate deal, and that's a good day at work.
Yeah, and if that works for you, that works for you. I mean, I always say one thing to everybody I talk to, when they're talking about building their brand. What about you do you want me to amplify? Because that's essentially what you're going to do, right? What about you is it that I'm going to get on the bullhorn about, and I'm going to, scream at the top of my lungs? And is that message going to actually attract you business? Or is it going to build you as a person, or what you want to put out there, or how you want to do business? And is it going to indirectly impact your business? And that was the biggest thing with, another, tale from the Nav side, but I don't touch anything to do with his dealerships and marketing. And the first, sort of message I wanted to put out there was him as a person. I don't need to sell a car for you. Because once people understand who you are as a person and what you really want to do in life, they're going to come support you,
Love it. Love
right?
it. Now,
Right.
was that like one of your rules that you said to Nav, like, hey, I'm not touching the dealership at all, or? or was that, a mutual understanding?
It was a conversation we both had where part of it was, I want to separate Superfan from the dealerships. And a lot of it was also because I didn't want to get into a position where it felt like Superfan was one big advertisement for his dealerships.
Hmm.
I wanted him to be the advertisement for the dealership. I wanted Superfan to be its own brand, but I wanted Superfan to be the legacy he builds. A business isn't a legacy. A business is something you're building to make money and sell and whatever you want to do, or it's giving you a life, right? It's the messaging that sort of comes off of, the business you're building. That's your legacy, right? And so for Nav, it was always let the dealerships do what they do. You got a marketing team, let them all do what they do. What I'm going to do is I want people to get to know who the real Nav Bhatia is, not the guy screaming on Fan 590, not the guy, screaming at the top of his lungs on CB24, the Oliver the Jeweler type of stuff that goes on. But I want them to get to know that there's a purpose with all this. And the dealerships are a means to this purpose. And so there's multiple ways you can come support this purpose. You're either going to go to the dealerships and you're deciding that, you know what, I would rather buy a car off of him over the other guys because the other guys are just sitting on their yachts in Miami. This guy's actually doing camps for kids and all this other stuff. So, these are the things that you think about when you start, you're in sales and you're figuring out how do you level up and how do you gain more business and how do you, and how do you fulfill what you want to do as a salesperson, right? What relationship do you want with the community, with people, and so that was a conscious decision we made. And the other part of it too was being able to work with other brands. Other brands aren't going to want to, see Nav walking in, pushing Hyundai, right? So our whole thing was it was a conscious decision, and we've actually done stuff with other automobile dealers. Like, we don't have any issue with it.
I love it. It's so smart. It's thinking ahead and it's focusing on a completely different picture, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Um,
So
it, it-
you've got Nav as super fan, because there's a uniqueness to him and a uniqueness to his brand. So it doesn't matter what the widgets are that he's selling or marketing. They'll be, whether it's in the car business or it's in a charitable endeavor or in some other community involvement that he is, there's a certain trust, relationship, understanding who he is, and a comfort level for getting involved with him. And that
Mhm.
naturally is going to translate to the car business. Like it's going to get there too, but it's not going to be exclusively to that. And if he decides to go into some other business tomorrow, it's available for him because you've created this brand, this, right?
Yeah, and there was another great word you threw into that was trust, right? That's what branding does.
creates, yeah.
Consistency builds trust, right? And so for me, if I'm a real estate agent, I'm worrying less about, my TikTok videos and all that stuff, and I'm worrying more about what am I doing in the community? How are people seeing me? Are they seeing me just, selling listings, or are they seeing me at the Christmas market doing stuff, or in Halloween doing stuff, or are they seeing me supporting these small community initiatives that are happening around me? And are they seeing me really a part of this neighborhood? Or are they just seeing me throwing listings up everywhere? Right. And again, that's part and parcel of, what do you want your brand to be? What do you want your brand to say? You can just be an advertisement for all your listings, or you can be building a really strong message. Right. And for a super fan, it gives us the opportunity. You're right. I mean, we've got multiple ventures launching in this year. And, from a guy that's never played basketball, can't hit a free throw for his life, and it's actually in contracts. He's not allowed to, stand on the court and shoot because you'll kill
Really?
it overnight. But here we are hosting, one of the biggest basketball camps in the city and going cross country with it, right? I mean, People forget, this is a 72-year-old guy with a turban and a beard,
Love it.
right? If I told you this is the guy I'm going to market, you first thing you say is, I don't know how marketable this guy is, right? But now you got every single person in that arena. Part of the lore of going to a Raptors game is I got to get a picture with Superfan.
Right.
That's a picture with a 72-year-old guy with a turban and a beard,
Crazy.
right?
Crazy.
That's the power of building a brand.
Yeah, it gives you a lot to think about, and so he wasn't built overnight. It took a long time, but we're gonna get more into this story. I think, Rinka, we're gonna have you back in the next podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Like, unbelievable conversation. I have a million questions, but we're gonna have you back next time. We're gonna dive deeper on how we can use some of these sports strategies in real estate and how we can leverage some of those marketing techniques to help build real estate agents up. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. We have Rinku from Push